Paradox Interactive is a game development studio based in Sweden, which makes some of the best strategy games in the world. Their newest release, Victoria 3, has already been a massive time investment for me, which I will gain absolutely nothing out of, and will only degrade my already deteriorating gamer brain into even further mush. I've come to dub this repeating period of time investment into a specific Paradox game the Paradox Rabbithole. Everyone who has played a Paradox game knows about this and will fall into the Paradox rabbit hole at some point, if not multiple times, if not dozens. During this trip into the rabbit hole, you will cease to think about anything which is not in some way connected to Paradox Interactive and their games. You will switch from being a radical communist to a reactionary fascist in a matter of hours after your country falls to revolts due to your complete lack of understanding of the game mechanics despite having played Victoria 2 for over 1,000 hours. You will grow to disdain Turkish people after the Ottoman AI continually raises troops out of thin fucking air and won't stop harassing you in Europa Universalis 4. You will become a based and red-pilled Prussian monarchist wereaboo degenerate or a sissy anarcho-syndicalist femboy revolutionary after the brain-melting exposure to Hearts of Iron 4. Not to mention Crusader Kings, which will change absolutely nothing about you, you fucking psychopath. While I do enjoy a good 12-hour single-player Paradox session, I do prefer to play in multiplayer. Sadly, it can be quite difficult to find a public game in the newer releases, as for some reason the new engine for Crusader Kings and Victoria 3 just does not include an in-game chat option, despite the previous games having one. When you can find them, though, public games cause an intense mental pain to all those who attempt to play them. On average, I notice a public lobby of any Paradox game will take around an excruciating 2 to 3 hours of waiting for the game to start, because some troglodyte trying to join from the Discord server it's being hosted from doesn't know how to install a fucking mod from the Steam Workshop, and at which point the game will desync as soon as it begins, which will result in another hour of waiting. The actual game will either go on for one of the 4 hours every player is allocated to play, or not at all until they all meet up again next week for the exact same experience. I have spent the majority of my almost 600 hours in Victoria 2 doing this. I regret doing this, but yet if I could go back in time, I'd do the exact same thing. There is something about the banshee screeching of the average Paradox player as their country burns to the ground that I find entertaining, so I continue to play. The average Paradox gaming community which hosts these games will consist of at the very least one neo-Nazi, one unironic monarchist, and one trans woman. For some reason this is universal. Military history brings these groups together to yell at each other after someone uses an exploit in the game's mechanics, and it is rigorously debated whether that exploit can be used in future games or not. But sometimes you just want to oppress minorities in peace without having to play in a scheduled campaign. The aforementioned Paradox single-player option is always available, and will probably be the one that you mostly play, because, as you did click on a video about Paradox games, you probably don't have any friends to begin with, and if you did, if you ever attempt to play a Paradox game, you will abandon them in favor of your Crusader King's mother wife, who will get you through the toughest times of your life. These multi-day adventures will suck you in and not let you leave until you rage quit after the game bugs out for the 10th fucking time in the last hour. The average session will consist of 12 consecutive hours of clicking until you look at the clock and realize how much time you wasted today committing virtual war crimes and realize that you're a threat to public safety, before spending another 12 hours keeping the world safe by staying inside, continuing your 50th campaign of restoring the German Kaiserreich in Hoi 4. Paradox games will greatly affect your relationships with other people. They will assume the worst of you after going on a multi-hour rant of why slavery is the most effective form of labor in Stellaris. They will assume that you are a racist after your rant about why genocide is favorable because it causes less late-game lag because there are less people for the game to calculate the behavior of. They will confirm their suspicions that you are a sexual deviant after you say literally anything about the Crusader Kings game you're playing right now. If you're not comfortable with these arrangements, then stay very clear of Paradox games. However, if you're willing to indulge your degenerate desires, welcome to the club.